We begin with breaking news. North Korea has fired another ballistic missile. That's according to the Pentagon, which confirms reports out of South Korea. I want to take us straight to CBS News national security correspondent David Martin at the Pentagon. David, did this catch the Pentagon by surprise?
Well, they had been expecting a test. They were expecting a test of either an intermediate range missile or an intercontinental range missile. It's not known yet which this was. So they were anticipating a test. I think the timing of it caught them by surprise in that it came several hours, I think, before they anticipated it. It was fired from a mobile missile launcher outside a plant which is on the western side of the country near the capital of Pyongyang. It flew eastward, and now what needs to be determined is the splashdown point. Has it been fired as the last missile test was over Japan out into the Pacific, or will it be fired on a trajectory, a much higher angle trajectory that brings it down in the Sea of Japan? All that kind of analysis is going on as we speak, and we should know those answers fairly shortly.
How do you see this latest launch impacting the current tensions between the U.S. and the North, David?
Well, you know, the last test was September 15th, so it's been 2.5 months without a test. There had begun to be people who were thinking that maybe North Korea's dictator Kim Jong-un was deciding to cool things for a while because he was getting too much pressure from China, from the sanctions that the United Nations voted. But I think most people thought it was only a matter of time before they tested again. Historically, they test very infrequently in the last quarter of every calendar year. Why that is a subject for speculation. Maybe the troops are needed for the harvest. Maybe the weather conditions aren't right. But it's an historical fact that they rarely test in that last quarter. So this would be the first test in the last quarter of the year, and I think it will show that North Korea has not given up one iota on its intention of developing an intercontinental ballistic missile capable of reaching the United States.
And David, you know, what's the Pentagon right now, their greatest concern when it comes to the North's missile program?
Well, I think it's one, the fact that North Korea is getting very close to having a missile it can count on to deliver a nuclear weapon to the United States. And once that bridge is crossed, then every one of these missile launches becomes a mini crisis to see if this is the time that a missile was launched at the United States. Most people think Kim Jong-un would be insane to launch a missile at the United States because the retaliation would almost certainly lead to the end of his regime. But the whole problem with North Korea is that he, as a leader, is so unpredictable.
Yeah, certainly true. Our David Martin coming to us from the Pentagon. David, thank you for your time.
Sure thing.
And joining me now by phone is CBS News radio military analyst Mike Lyons. Mike, thank you for joining us. We just heard David Martin talk about it. They're not sure exactly the trajectory, whether this was an ICBM as well. What's your sense of what you're seeing right now?
Yeah, so my reports are showing the missile still in the air. It went east. The question is whether it does fall into the Sea of Japan before Japan or into the Pacific. I think I would suspect that this would likely be a missile that would go to the Pacific Ocean to show that he's got more capability as the United States monitors every second of what he's going to do here. This is likely in response to sanctions that have been put on in the past last quarter, in the past few months. And it does go to show that he continues to improve on this technology. Every time he does, even when they fail, they fall short, whatever the case may be, they learn from them and they try to improve them for the next one.
You know, the timing of this is kind of strange. The fact that it came in the middle of the night. David Martin, our national security correspondent there, talking about how it came. The Pentagon wasn't surprised by this, but it did come a few hours earlier. Is there anything about the timing that that strikes you?
Yeah, it did, and the Japanese had picked up radio signals, and right now, that part of the world, we're using all the technology we can to try to predict these when they happen. Almost down to the hour. Let's say the Japanese had given out some signals that they felt this was going to happen. It's just that when they can predict when that launch comes, they just be more prepared to monitor it, and they're just concerned about where it goes. I mean, the worst possible scenario is the North Koreans miscalculate, make a mistake, they actually hit Japan, or the missile travels south into South Korea, or further out to Guam, or some other U.S. target there. And whether North Korea intended to do that or not is irrelevant, because I think our response would be immediate. It would be ferocious. It'd be turned on instantly, and we've got to put all those things in place once that missile leaves the launch pad.
What do we know about North Korea's nuclear program?
Well, we know that it gets better as time has gone on. We know that we believe he has this atomic capability now, which would change the calculus of the accuracy of his missiles. If he hasn't just nuclear capability, he'd have to be pretty accurate to hit a West Coast city, even without a space program with satellites to guide that missile in. But with an atomic weapon, that can be burst over the air, the overpressurization could do a lot more damage, and we just have to, let's say, come close. Makes it more of an area fire weapon as opposed to a precision type technology. It gets better all the time, and the thing that we can't have him do is proliferate it to second and third world countries. That's what North Korea wants out of this. They want to be able to take this technology and sell it to others in the market and level the playing field when it comes to nuclear powers. There's only 9 countries in the world that have nuclear capability, and we include North Korea in that, and we shouldn't at some level because they got it, really under our noses under the past few administrations.
And Mike, what are you looking for in the hours and days to come post this launch?
Our response, what will the Chinese do? I still don't believe the Chinese are going to do much until they feel that North Korea threatens them, as well as the Russians. The Chinese have been passive-aggressive. They've been talking a good game, but frankly, they just have not shut down the North Korean banking. They have not cut off North Korea's capability to wage this kind of test. And I think until the Trump administration has got to ratchet up sanctions, possibly against China, in order for that to happen. But I just don't believe the Chinese feel that the North Koreans are still a threat to them, and that's why they're just not going to do anything.
Mike Lyons, CBS News radio military analyst. Mike, thank you for joining us.
Great. Thanks for having me.